Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm going to talk about growth. Commercial versus residential. Let's talk about growth. We talked about cash flow last week, so if you missed that episode, please go and look it up. I'll leave a link below as well. There's one on commercial versus residential on just cash flow. And because it's such a large topic today, I'm actually going to talk about growth. Growth comparisons in terms of commercial versus residential. And next week, I'm going to talk about return on investment, because we're going to complete the whole picture and talk about resi versus commercial, and we talk about return on investment and what is really a good vehicle and what you should be looking at in terms of investing in a property, right? Doesn't matter if it's residential or commercial, as long as you know your return on investment, that is the most important thing. And then I'll share with you from there on a couple of investor stories going forward as well. But let's get started. Growth. So how is growth calculated in the commercial property field, right? Very different from residential. So residential has one way of capital growth, and that's market. So what happens with capital growth in any market is this. So we have what we call a market capital growth. So what happens is, say, for example, this is January. Let's say this is over a 12-month period. Over 12 months, right? So this is January. This is April. This is August. And let's say that this is December, right, of one given year, right, of one given year. Let's just say that you're buying a $500,000 property, right? You're buying a $500,000 property and you're getting $50K net rent. So what is that? That is a 10% return, right? That is amazing, right? You can't find that in today's market unless you go to a mining town. But that is absolutely amazing. But the main thing is, with that 10%, right, that's how this is how market works, right? So let's say the market goes down 3 months down the track. We're now shooting this, and we're in towards the end of March, almost April, right? And the market's gone really, really hot. There are people coming into this market, and how does the market heat up is why there's more infrastructure, so more government money. There's more government services, so your hospitals, your schools, and everything. This is what happens in market, right? This is what happens in residential. This also applies partly to commercial, but I'll explain this first. And then there might be other activity, other incentives by the government, other projects and everything else. So then more people move into this area because they go, oh wow, 500K, great returns, let's go into this area. All of a sudden they're willing to pay $550, right? Rent hasn't changed. Rent's still, still 50K. Now you're getting a 9% yield. So they're happy with the 9% because back end they're, 50K, they're much, that the 50K was that they're still getting the returns, but they're more banking on the capital growth in the back end because they can see the market is trending that way. So let's say 3 months go down the track or 4 months down the track. We're now in August. More and more people coming to this area because there's more of a hub, more articles being written, more things coming into this area, more people thinking, oh, great, it's a great area. And so what happens is now someone's willing to pay $650. And we've seen this. We've seen markets jump. Like literally in 6 months, we've seen properties almost, go up 40%. And this is true. This is what happens in market. It's not linear. It just happens, right? It just happens and it jumps in this blink of an eye and people get lucky, right? It's a hope and pray method in some ways, right? $650. Rent's still here. But now we are more trending like 7.5%, right? But it's okay because you can see the growth happening in the market. And because you're seeing the growth happening in the market, you're like, wow, what else is there, right? All of a sudden it comes to December and the market's really heating up. It's really, really hot and everyone wants to be in the market. Someone comes in and goes, bang, I'm going to pay $800K for that property. I'm going to pay $800K for that property. That's a 6% yield, right? And that defines the market. It's $800K. It's $50,000 in net rent. The rent hasn't changed, but now they're getting 6%. But you're like, back 12 months ago, someone was getting 10%. How can they take 6%? Well, it's because of market growth, capital growth, right? They're focused more on growth than cash flow, right? So for them, the growth is important. What they've seen is 500K, 50K, 650, and now they know 800. And what they want, hoping for, is that by the time you get to mid the following year, that property is going to be worth 1 mil, 1.2 mil, because the market just continues to grow. Now, no one can predict if the market is going to grow or not, but there's always the hope that the market grows. So market capital growth. So what we call market capital growth, right? What is market capital growth? Is that as the value of the property goes up, the yield or the return goes down, right? So that's what market capital growth is as the returns go up, as the value goes up, the return goes down. So the yield goes down. And that doesn't matter if it's residential or commercial. This is what we call market capital growth. So commercial or residential happens the same. It has market capital growth, right? But commercial has one more thing added to it that residential does not have. And that's what we call lease or rent capital growth. So there's actually you get two bites of the cherry in commercial. You get rent capital growth and you get market capital growth. Now, rent capital growth means that even in a flat market that we're in now, with the interest rate going up and down and not stable, even in a flat market, your property value not only holds, but continue to grow no matter what the market is doing. And that's rent capital growth that residential doesn't get, but commercial gets. And let me explain to you how. So in commercial, there is two different things. There is market capital growth and rent capital growth. Now, we've just covered market capital growth. We know what market capital growth is. And market capital growth is when the value of the property goes up. What it leads to is the yield or return going down. So that's what market capital growth is, right? And I know it might be a little bit hard to see because there's a bit of a reflection, but it's literally value going up, yield and return coming down. And that's what market is. And that happens to residential and commercial, right? But then now there's a thing called capital growth in rent. Now that's if in a flat market. If you get both, you've hit the double whammy. You've hit the double whammy, and that's when you have exponential growth in your commercial property. And this is why people go, wow, that property is doubled in value. And that's really essentially how commercial property works, is that if rents go up a little bit by little bit, but it comes to a time where rents just change. Like what we're seeing in the residential market, the rents just all of a sudden jumps. It didn't jump by 10%, it jumps by 20%. We can see that commercial property in certain areas, as it gentrifies, it comes to this tipping point where it jumps by 30, 40%. All of a sudden you see the commercial property double in value, right? And that's what's happened in rent capital growth. So rent capital growth is based on rental increases per year. Per year. That's what it's based in. Now, rental increases are CPI, 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever it happens to be, right? That's what market rent is. So let's have a look at what this looks like in real format. So let's say you're buying a property and it's $70,000. Let's say $70,000. Let's just say that, it goes up and the property goes up and it goes up to, let's say it's a 4% increase per year, right? 4% rental increase. So let's say you bought this property. So year one, you bought it for $1 million at 7% yield, which is equivalent to 70K, right? That's what you bought it for. So that's what you bought it for when you initially bought it for. Year two, you now 70K is going to times, so we take 70K, 70,000, 0.04. So 70,000 by 1.04, and we come up with a formula. So 70,000 by 1.04 equals 72,800, right? So that's your new net rent. So let's just take this out for a second. And so we'll just repeat that so you know exactly what I mean. So we've got $70,000 here. That's year one, 70K, right? That's before your rental increases, and that's equal to 7% at 1 million. Year two, you've had 4% increase, which is equal to 72,800, right? Now, if it's a flat market and the banks go, well, and you go back to the bank in 12 months and say, hey, Mr. Bank, can you value my property? They're going to go, okay, well, it's a flat market, hasn't moved. Person bought next door for 7% yield. Person bought three streets away for 7% yield. Everyone in the market in this particular suburb is doing 7%. Your property is still 7%, right? Okay, it's still 7%. So now we go, okay, how would they value that? So they simply take 72,800 and they divide it by 7%, and what they will get is $1,040,000. $1,040,000 is what they get. And incidentally, $1,040,000 is a 4% increase, right? It's a 4% increase from the previous year. So what does that mean? It means this rental increase per year that's guaranteed in your lease, it's equivalent to directly the capital growth of your property. So how cool is that? How cool is it the fact that you can get a property and be guaranteed capital growth no matter what the market is doing? The market is flat, you still get your 4%. The market is flat, in residential you go sideways. The market goes down, you go backwards, right? Commercial doesn't. Your rent goes up, the value goes up, equivalent to the rent review or the rent review per year, right? So 4%. So what that means is that you're getting 7% in terms of its return, in terms of that's its cash return, that's the cash upfront return, but before mortgage, after outgoings, the cash return, plus you're getting a 4% increase in capital growth guaranteed in the back end. So overall, when you're calculating the yield in terms of cash plus growth, that property, the return is over 10%. It's probably 11% going trending towards 12% in the market in the future. But on top of that, with the rental increase, there's another benefit. You get more cash in the pocket, you get an extra $2,800 in pocket, plus your guaranteed 4% increase. Now, that's what happens in a flat market in rental capital growth. So no matter what the market is doing, you still get capital growth in commercial that you don't get in residential. And that's the beauty of investing in commercial. And that's why there's never been a better time than right now to invest in commercial, where everybody else is stagnant, they're scared. You take the first step, you book in a strategy call, you join one of our events, you read one of our articles, you participate, you go out there, you have a plan forward, and you build cash flow, you build wealth in your portfolio moving forward. And you know, you can book in a strategy call with us right now down below, but continue on for that. That's the difference. That's the difference. But there's one more thing that makes this even more of an exciting thing when you look at when you can add market changes, so market growth plus capital growth from rent. Then you get kaboom effect and your property just exponentially explodes, right? So let me share with you how. So what happens when you have market and rent capital growth? Or what happens when you have that, right? So let's look at this scenario again. Year one, you get it's 70,000, 7% yield at 1 million, right? That's what you bought the property on. That's what you bought it on. That's what all the DD, everything matches up to that. Year two, you have a rental increase of 4%. So we had a rental increase of 4%, right? So we have 4% rental increases here. And now your value of your property at 7% in a flat market is worth $1,040,000. You also picked up an extra $2,800 in cash flow as well. So double whammy for you already, more cash flow in the pocket to, you know, even if you had a bit of rate increase, that really insulates you, more money in your pocket. $1,040,000 in capital growth, which means that pretty soon you're going to be able to refinance and draw down that money and go again. Now, something else happens. Market starts to boom. More people come into the market, more infrastructure projects, lots and lots of things start to happen. And the market starts to boom. Remember how we draw out the picture, you know, someone willing to have a lower return, pay higher prices because they're going to capital growth? Well, happened, right? Someone's willing to go for 6%. They don't need 7%. They're happy with a 6% based on the current rent of $72,800 because you had a rental increase. It's our 6%. What is the value of your property now? $1,213,333. That is the value of your property when you add in market growth plus rental growth. That's when it exponentially booms, right? So you think you would have held this property for, 1 year and a bit. You had a rental increase. It happens every year. So 12 months, just over 12 months, potentially someone holding it for 18 months. Your property has gone up from $1 million to $1.2 million, right? And that's what happens when the market is changing and you're getting capital growth at the same time. When you have a double whammy, if you don't, you get a flat market, you still protect your the value of your assets, you still get cash flow, your property still goes up, but incrementally in a slower level. But when you combine both, that's where you get an extra almost 200k, extra 160,000, but you get 200k within a 12 to 18 month period, which is phenomenal because you could draw down on that, allows you to go again, buy the next property, right? And now you're going to ask me, where am I going to find this property? This type of property. I can tell you that it exists, but I'm not going to tell you where, because it needs to suit your strategy where you want to go. Commercial property is not something that you go and just randomly pick a property, because that's where you get burnt. With strategy, plans, looking at property portfolios, looking at a design, looking at a blueprint, and the criteria for the property is where we're going to get you there. There's absolute places that you can get cash flow and growth, that you can position yourself. And that may not be a 7% yield, maybe a 6%, but it will compress to a 5%. Maybe a 7% will compress to a 6.5%. The markets change, and they're everywhere around Australia, but small pockets, and you've got to know where to look, live and breathe it, right? So click below, join one of our upcoming events, book in a strategy session so we can help you move forward, buy the book, and just watch more YouTube videos. Really encourage you, more education, fast track yourself to better wealth through commercial property, right? That's the end result. And how fast can you grow if that's what you're achieving in 12 to 18 months time? So next video, watch it when I talk about return on investment, commercial versus residential. How does that work? How do you calculate your true return on investment so you can choose the right pathway forward? So don't forget to click the bell, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.